Right, good evening guys. So I thought I'd just have a quick chat about the loawa 35mm f0.5 lens, the Argos lens that I had recently, and it's gone back. I kind of wasn't feeling it in the end. I tried it out, used it a little bit, not too much, because obviously it was brand new and obviously had a return on it, so I had to be relatively sensible with it. But I used it a few times and it was really nice. I mean, it gave me a feeling of like using something like the old film cameras in the old days when I first started, like this Pentax M8 Super, for example, my original camera. And it was nice. It was really nice, and there's a few things I loved about it and a few things I hated. So I thought I'd just give you my sort of opinion on it, really, just in case you're thinking about buying this lens and you kind of don't really know. And it's 900 quid, so it's not cheap. So yeah, I mean, I loved it, but I also hated it at the same time. I say hate, probably not quite as strong as that, but at the same time, it was quite, yeah, I didn't feel it 100%. You know, sometimes you buy a lens and you love it completely. Like my 135G Master, for example, is probably the best lens I own. And you know, another lens I really loved was my 135 Zeiss on the A mount. But unfortunately, obviously, that was old screw drive focus and everything like that, so I kind of updated it. And that had a real charm to the images that I was taking, something I really personally liked. And the 135G Master is like that, but on steroids. So with the 35mm f0.5, I loved it because of the simplicity. It was a metal build. Even the lens hood was really nice. And like I said, it took me back a little bit to sort of old school photography, fully manual, and you know, it just worked really nicely. It was very smooth. The only couple of things I didn't like about it was the aperture ring had knurling for grip and then a gap, and then that was all smooth. So if you had cold fingers or anything like that, or gloves on, you'd struggle to turn it to change your aperture. So that was a little bit annoying. The click button to go from click to no click on the aperture ring just felt cheap. It clicked really nicely one way, but when you unclicked it, it just felt horrible. Yeah, unique look from the images, that was really good. I mean, like I say, it's very nice, and I'll put a couple of pictures in. If not, have a look at the other video as well. Yep, sharp in certain conditions, but a lot of people still today get the difference between sharpness and depth in a bit confused. So if you've got a very shallow depth of field, it's going to look soft, apart from that very small thin line of sharpness. So if you're trying to photograph something that's quite deep, you kind of need to set your aperture or move your distance back from your subject until that becomes in focus. And a lot of people obviously don't understand that. Either they're learning or they're just sort of stuck in their ways and they don't like to adjust their aperture other than being wide open all the time. So that's one of the things. So it was a little bit of a challenge using it. Obviously, manual focus worked fine on the Sonys. I mean, it's probably the same with the Canons now and all the other mirrorless cameras. You can zoom in and you get peaking. It shows you what's in and out of focus. You can zoom in on a custom button, so you can kind of see, you know, pinpoint the eye, for example. If you're doing some portraiture, you can make sure that's in focus, but it slows you down. So it had some really good positives about it. The hate part, which wasn't really hate, like I said, but that was that aperture ring. That was one thing that really wound me up, was the fact that it has, I'll show you with my Samyang here, you've got the grippy bits, and then obviously this is the focus part, but obviously an aperture ring down here. You had grippy bits and then smooth, grippy bits and smooth, so when you went to turn it, it was almost like you were slipping. So that was one thing that really wound me up. The depth of field was very cool, the shallow depth of field, but it made me realise that f1.4 is miles too much most of the time anyway. So having something like f1.4 lens is plenty. For low light operation, f1.4, f1.2 is probably as much as you really need. Yes, I did do a little bit of shooting with it, f095 in the dark, just to see, and it allowed me to bring my ISOs down and shoot in 4K at 25 frames per second. yeah. But I'm at 35mm wide angle, so in some situations it would have been good, but then obviously manual focus as well, so that was really annoying. Real world value, this is where it got me. £899 for a lens that, yeah, is kind of unique. There are a couple other ones out there similar, but it's very, very kind of a narrow market, you know, so you are paying for that kind of one-off look as such. I think in the real world, 399 quid I'd be happy with. I don't think anything more than that it should have been. Obviously, it's priced for a particular reason. This and that. I know it's quirky, but you know, it's a £900 quirkiness, which is a bit crazy. The fact it has zero weather sealing, it's a little bit annoying. Yep, it flared. There's lots of flaring, which was fine. It kind of added to some of the pictures. You end up with rainbow rings and stuff like that, which is kind of cool in some situations, especially wide open. But the vignetting was pretty horrendous. So you either had to deal with it in Photoshop or just go, okay, I'm going to shoot black and white all day long. And tell you what, in black and white, it looks epic. That lens is where it shined. So, yeah. But again, the price. You know, it's a lens that I would use occasionally. And having something like the Samyang here, which I've got, and I bought this as an open box about 4 or 5 years ago. I couldn't tell you when exactly, but it's done me proud. It's not as good as the Sony's. Optically, it's not bad at all. It's very sharp. Even at f1.4, I get some very, very good results from it. Obviously, autofocus is not completely silent. There's a little bit of clicking and stuff going on when it's adjusting small amounts. But other than that, it's a really good lens. And I paid, what did I say, £399 as an open box. So, you know, that's what kind of, you know, that area is a good price, isn't it, for most people to buy a lens, you know, that's not ridiculous money. And where that the loawa one f0.95 lens is very limited, I think. It's a very limited market. Yes, it's pretty good for astro shots, very easy to get stars. Unfortunately, your depth of field is so shallow, you're either on the stars or on your foreground somewhere. But so it's, yeah, interesting to say the least on how you do that. I'm not a astros expert as such. So like I said, the vignetting was bad in a lot of ways. It was more to do with the fact that obviously if you're shooting into the sun or even slightly side on, so you could still get a bit of light coming in from the side. Yeah, so exactly what I was saying about this is where this came into its own for the 400 quid mark, with autofocus and manual focus option, obviously. Other than that, yeah, it was still a fantastic lens, and it had its kind of, like I say, its quirkiness. And if you've got 900 quid laying around and you want to buy a really quirky lens, go for it. It was enjoyable to use, but for me personally, I bought it to really try it out and see if I really wanted it, and was I going to get rid of this? That was the other option. Do I sell this? I'm glad I didn't. So yeah, if you get the option to go and try one in a shop or something like that, feel free. It is an experience and everything, but like I say, for me personally, it wasn't for me. But there's a lot of lenses out there. I've probably wasted too many thousands of pounds out there over the years buying the wrong lenses, and it is a challenge sometimes. And obviously we see a lot of the time on Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that. One, the very good reviews on some of the YouTube channels out there, but also the questions of people asking, what lens should I buy? What lens should, you know? And it is a difficult way to go. So yeah, I would do your research in any lens you're going to buy a little bit. Look at the reviews, look at some of the images that people are posting, and you'll be able to see, you know, if it's good or bad. I don't think there's really such thing as a bad lens anymore. I think, you know, most of them out there are very, very good. You do get obviously what you pay for. Something like the 50mm G Master, the f1.2 is epic. The 135 G Master f1.8 is epic. But the Sigma, which I owned the Sigma 135 f1.8, and I now own the Sony G Master 135. And image wise, very, very similar. You wouldn't really tell, but it's the autofocusing, it's how much closer you can focus with the Sony, for example, which makes it a deal breaker for me, what I was using it for. So there are pros and cons with certain things. Obviously the Sigma's much cheaper, Sony's more expensive. So there's lots of things to go into consideration when you are buying new lenses. But I just thought I'd show you my thoughts on that f0.95 lens. I don't think I'd ever need anything like that again, and it was nice to be able to try it out. Obviously I had to buy it first for 900 quid. During Christmas, the company I used quite a bit, they had a 45-day return, so I tried it for a couple of weeks and then put it back in the box, and then obviously sent it back after Christmas. And you know, like I say, it was good, but yeah, not for me, unfortunately. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell as well. Any thoughts or comments on what you think of this lens, or if it's something you thought about, let us know down in the comments. I just think it's way overpriced. That's the major thing about it. Other than that, like I say, it's got a few little quirky things and a few yeses and nos about it. But you know, everything's a bit like that nowadays, isn't it? You know, your phone, your camera, and everything like that it's all subjective within reason. So anyway, I'm going to stay with my trusty Samyang for the moment, and maybe upgrade one day. But until then, this is still a fantastic lens. Even on the 61 megapixel A7R4A, it still works very, very well. So anyway, don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell, like I said, and I shall see you soon.